Grifter's Bible, a novel by El Shaboons, read by El Shaboons, with sound design by Monumental Sonic Architecture. Chapter 16, Visuddhimagga.
I told you already. The kid picked the lock. I could see the works in his hand. Besides, he's harmless. I've been buying weed off of him since he showed up down here on New Year's Eve. He's holing up over at the old whorehouse behind my place selling some dank-ass GDP until he finds a better flop.
Billy Goat collected evil off the ground.
He's at the place on Walton?
That's where the street team did all of their bathing. It was a real shithole with a rotating cast of alcoholics, dirty kids, and hard luck cases crammed into 6 roach-infested shotgun flats on the top floor and 3 converted storefront studios on the ground level. There was always an active shooting gallery in one of the units. I lived there for about 6 months right after I got laid off from IM. It smelled like turkey cooking all the time. Maybe Joey had noticed the 30 extra people that were clogging up the 2 communal bathroom showers every night, and he had decided to see where they were coming from.
That's just what I hear on the block.
Billy Goat shrugged.
But the couple of times I've seen him, he's working out of his backpack. He's got this big old postal bag full of weed. I saw him pull out a dropper bottle full of acid, mason jar with a brick of mushroom dust, Ziploc with about 100 Bart Simpson tabs of X.
Billy Goat giggled.
Ha, he's young. A space cadet. But he's coming out the gates for real. I heard him mention those blues. What blues? I think he's into junk. He's got balloon hands. His arms are all poked full of holes. Tell him to come see me the next time he's around. Top of my list, boss. Top of my list.
Billy Goat rolled his eyes and evil sniffed. The two of them were chuffing to travel.
Are we done yet? It's not like the church is all we got going on. We're heading to the deep end for some papers. Yeah. See you later.
I walked them out. They passed a black Buick idling at a parking meter catty-cornered from the church. I watched the outline of the driver behind the treated window. I could see a bald head turning to mark their pass. Then the driver turned back around. I could feel him looking at the patio. I squinted back. Then for an instant, it felt like our eyes locked onto one another. The driver broke his gaze and put the car in gear. He pulled away from the curb. I could see a dark shape like a person's head slunk down beneath the passenger side window. The driver disappeared down Walton with a screech of the tires. Jerk off. I didn't care. I had bigger fish to fry. I kept thinking about the dream I'd been having every night since New Year's. Joey Abraham's disembodied eyes led me through the ocean to the cave where I found James Abraham guarding the luminescent grimoire, Visuddhimagga. I had looked up the name. It translated to a path to purification. Purification. What did that have to do with James? James had spent decades researching GABA for anesthetic purposes, but with his phone number disconnected, there wasn't much of a way to ask James about it. It needled me. I needed to understand. The church was empty. Seth had taken the whole crew out celebrating after the show. The Winter City was closing its heavy lids by 8 that Sunday night. The minutes before sundown dragged on way longer than I thought they should. The nag of curiosity wouldn't let me settle down. I walked over to the place on Walton. The lock had been broken for years. The front door groaned on cold hinges. The battered door was barred from swinging wide open by a pile of dead leaves, dry junk mailers, and rolls of old uncollected newspapers. I didn't bother yanking the limp string hanging from the vestibule ceiling. There was no bulb in the socket. The air in the claustrophobic stairwell stunk of black burnt coffee and hot yellow chicken soup. The walls sweated brown tar that condensed into thick oleaginous drops of mud that crashed into the free-roaming water bugs boldly climbing the walls like they were paying rent. At the top of the stairs, a gnarly black tree branch propped the lone window open, providing a source of light for the stairwell and blessed ventilation for the stale funk that filled the upstairs hall. The window looked out onto a gated courtyard where late model cars were crammed as tight as Tetris blocks and leaking oil and antifreeze onto the tire-matted grass in front of the dumpster. The cold ground reflected starlight that twinkled off all of the bits of broken glass scattered throughout the weeds and gravel. I poked my head out the window and took a look around. The dogs began barking all at once like a helter-skelter choir. I 100 dachshunds had been rescued by the landlady, and she had them stacked in filthy cage upon filthy cage in the hallway across the courtyard. The dogs were sensitive, and the outbursts were frequent, and if some of the residents of the old whorehouse hadn't already been diddling with the trim around the lunatic fringe, then the nightly moment-to-moment howling and yapping from the cages could certainly push someone over the brink. From the second floor, I could see outside the gate to Walton, where a Lone Star electric utility van was parked at one of the meters across the street, facing south toward Canton. I saw a worker in a uniform sitting in the driver's seat. His gray jumpsuit arm was resting on the open window, and after a second of staring at his elbow, I realized that he was studying the rearview mirror. The mirror was all cockeyed so that it was aimed at the front door of the flop. He was just sitting there watching the building in the mirror. After a second, he turned his head just a hair and looked over the ridge of his sunglass frames directly at me. The naked gaze made me jump back out of sight. It knew me. Behind the door marked number 2 at the top of the stairs lived an unhinged Neanderthal named Kendall who looked like a cartoon drawn by Don Martin. She had barbiturate teeth and a lithium slur. Her hair was a morass of steel gray curls, and her hairy hooves always stuck out over her sour shower shoes. We had once shared a wall as neighbors, and I had never complained about the noise from Kendall's insane bickering sessions with her manic-depressive mate. We were on relatively good speaking terms. I tiptoed past her door, trying not to disturb her. It didn't do any good. "Hey man, you moving back in here?" The door was wrenched open and Kendall was there bellowing in the warm amber outspill of light from her place. "No, I was just looking for a friend I heard had moved in. You still know everybody?" I flicked my thumb over my shoulder. "Mostly." Kendall emerged from her lair and walked me down the hall. "I was just coming out to take a whiz while the commercial's on." She gave me all the hot gossip in her world. Kendall was loud but patient as she went name by name through the inventory of tenants and their quirks. She confirmed that all but one of the same creeps that had been in the building during my stay were still shacked up there. Then she said, "Yeah, then some young buck moved into number 6 in the back right after New Year's." As for my old apartment up front, Kendall had seen the landlady showing the place to 2 brothers. "Couple of kooks, probably Bible thumpers. Probably knobbing each other off. Bald as tits. They both walk like they got a cob shoved up their ass." We reached the back hall and Kendall elbowed me in the ribs. "Hey, I gotta piss like a racehorse. Later, man." The linoleum floor cried out in horror beneath the weight of Kendall's rhino gait. The bathroom door buckled when she slammed it shut with a grunt. I could hear the toilet lid slamming off the tank. She sounded like an elephant bumping into everything in there. The floor shook when she dropped onto the seat. I could hear all the dirty details when she let loose. I took a quick look at the silent face of door number 6. I stared at it, willing it into being the place where I would find Joey Abraham. Joey was raised on the run as his father's mind had fragmented after leaving Guantanamo. James had fairly reeked of paranoia about the government trying to take his work the whole time I knew him. He had been court-ordered into treatment after getting caught red-handed setting a fire in his home lab. In our group sessions, I had gleaned enough bits together that James might have started the fire that had consumed his lab in Guantanamo Bay. In treatment, his eyes were always darting from the parking lot to the tree line, and then to the door of the room. It was maddening. It was constant. Joey had put up with it since birth. It was bound to rub off. I stopped. I couldn't listen to Kendall hosing the bowl down any longer. I left the old place on Walton. The utility van was still parked outside when I walked out the front door. I decided to take the long way back home to the church. I took a sharp right down the alley, headed away from the church. Psst! I walked east until I was stopped by a whisper hissing from behind a bush of heavy oak scrub. I froze in place. A rivulet of cigarette smoke dredged a blue rill of pollution up into the air. A cigarette exploded into sparks when it smacked against the chipped brick wall. Joey's tan periscoped just above the shrubs and rotated to take in each mouth of the alleyway. The coast was clear. The bush began sprouting arms and legs like a hermit crab. I knew that drugs had entered Joey's life as he tried to deal with his dad's fading grip. I couldn't imagine what psychotropic nonsense had convinced Joey that such hide-and-seek maneuvers were necessary, but there was a guy parked outside his place watching the door. If he was the black hat in the kid's head game of Spy vs. Spy, he certainly had Joey spooked. Joey had aged like a president since the last time I'd seen him at Timberglen. He had dark circles under his eyes, scars from his father's mishigas. He looked homeless. He looked dead on his feet.
Joey.
I reached my hand out to shake, or give him 5. He acted like he didn't hear me.
Hey, Joe,
I stage whispered.
Shh.
He crossed his finger over his lips and motioned for me to follow him down the alley in a pantomime hand jive of stealth. We slunk from shadow to shadow, back towards the disabused fire escape at the back of the flop house. I didn't ask. I followed Joey up to the top of the rickety fire escape. I located him. He was kneeling in front of a soaped-over window. I could hear the blast of the geriatric AC unit in the apartment. It was freezing outside. Joey lifted the apartment window about 2 inches and then stuck the stiff fingers of his swollen hand through the crack. He pulled out a piece of tape. He balled it up and flicked it behind him. He fingered something on the other side of the transom before lifting the window frame the rest of the way up to the catch.
Watch your feet,
Joey hissed as he held the Venetian blinds out of the way. He stepped in like a cat. Joey warned me with one last look.
The first step is some prick.
He let the blinds fall back in place, completely obscuring him from my view. I stuck my face up near the window. I could hear the roar of an industrial-powered shop fan blasting like a jet engine on the other side. What was going on in there? I lifted the blinds and saw a party cup full of inky black water with twine tied around the base. The slack line was threaded through eye hooks on either side of the jamb, and the end was tied to a screw in the window frame. I looked down and Joey was removing a white towel from on top of a mound of candle wax on the floor below the window. The mound sparkled. I squinted. I bent my neck and looked closer. The business end of 50 insulin syringes were collected like pickets cemented prick up by the thick heaps of cold-hardened candle wax. Looking down into all of those tiny black barrel eyes was like looking into the face of the ghost of AIDS to come.
That's that first step I was talking about.
Joey stood up.
Just step over. They won't jump up and bite.
He walked away from the window. He disappeared back into the darkness in the apartment. I stretched my leg as far as I could until I set my one foot down just beyond the picket. I was too scared to lift my other leg off the sill. I might lose my balance. There's always a catastrophe with me. I looked around as my eyes adjusted to the deep dim. I scanned the apartment, half expecting James to be sitting there waiting to speak with me. But there was only a futon and piles of garbage stuffed inside of Joey's 8x10 cell. Candles, plastic baggies, and orange caps pockmarked the hardwood floor like an obstacle course for dust bunnies. The blackened spoons on the bedside table and the blood all over the walls above his futon said a lot. The place looked like a teenage stoner had decorated it. Jim Morrison's armpits leered over at me from a giant head shop tapestry tacked to the back of Joey's front door. I discovered a beanbag hidden deep beneath a cache of his schizophrenic hand drawings and journals. I moved them onto the floor and sank into the beanbag. I was swallowed whole.
Are those there for a reason?
I pointed at the syringes under the window.
I'd rather have a gun on me and not need one than need a gun and not have one.
Joey stepped out of the kitchen and pulled the window back down. He made sure to secure the blind shut after.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
He checked them 9 times. Then he stepped over to the front door and put his ear flat against Jim Morrison's nostrils. A peephole was cut out of the Lizard King's eye. Joey turned his head and mushed his cheek up to the peephole, jiggling the door handle as he muttered,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Just loud enough that I could hear him. He did it 9 times. Once he had satisfied the OCD itch that dogged him, he stepped back over and took a seat on the futon. Joey seemed sober when he turned to me.
Pop had problems, but he knew what he was talking about. I used to come home from school with guys following me. The phones would be clicking away every time we answered them. His handler was coming right up to the front door by the end, still dogging him about that research that burned up in Cuba. They would have kept on hounding him if he hadn't killed himself.
I started to ask him for more details of this handler, but then my mind seized up when it tried to digest Joey's last 5 words. I blinked in the gray light.
Letter by letter, word by word, I deconstructed and reassembled his sentence together in my head 10 times before I actually spoke it.
Joey, did you say your dad killed himself?
I wanted to heave myself out of the beanbag and hurtle my way over so I could pinch Joey to confirm that he was real and not another iteration of my dream. But I understood that my legs would not support me. I tried to roll from side to side. Blackness began to fill the room. Flustered by the beanbag, I grunted.
Well, goddammit, what happened?
Joey hung his head between his knees and scratched at a burn mark in the one patch of free space on the floor.
It was New Year's Eve. Mom found him right after midnight.
Joey continued futzing with the grime. He started mumbling, barely audible above the thunder of the shop fan and the disgruntled burr of the air conditioner.
There was a bag with a hose that he had attached to a helium tank in his workshop.
I listened to the white noise, the sine wave inside my head. That room was the coldest place in Texas. I shivered until I thought I'd vibrate apart. Joey shook his head.
Pop and I destroyed the last bit of his models and hardware that afternoon.
I felt like I was sitting on a flagpole. I stared at Joey. I felt truly hollowed out for the first time since I'd woken up in the loony bin at Timberglen. Joey looked at me and then looked away a few times. After a few seconds, he got up and stepped over some clothes to peep through the kitchen blinds. He went back to the front door and checked the locks and the peephole. Joey came back and sat on the end of the futon. He wouldn't look at me at first. He just kept looking down, intent on playing with a candle that had been sealed to the floor with its own wax.
Ma sent me away that night.
The words murmured up from between his knees. Joey corrected himself.
I mean, she didn't kick me out. She had to make a play. She needed a decoy so she could make a break for it with my little sister. She cut and run. I came down here to give them a little distraction.
Joey looked at me with those drugged-out cadaver eyes of his like he was making one final calculation. He got up from the futon and oafed over like a hunchback. He bent down in front of the window.
Ma said the government doesn't leave loose change sitting in the parking lot of Bulk Mart, and they don't let guys like Pop just up and walk away from the things he came up with down at Camp X-Ray. Something's happening. They're gearing up. The hounding got really bad when the recession began.
Joey leaned his face in next to me as he reached his fingers down to the wax mountain.
All that equipment and all those papers may have gone up in flames at Guantanamo, but they knew. The ideas don't die. That's why they keep pushing him. They want his ideas.
Joey hung his head and I heard him blow.
They're just like sharks. Last few months, all they did was circle Pop, trying to get a look into his archives. The private research he destroyed in those last few months before he went into the hospital would blow your mind. We put a match to every bit of it, just to give him the temporary peace of plausible deniability.
I saw Joey cock his ear to the side and I tried to listen for spooks in the night. I wanted there to be agents, or handlers, or someone real to focus the anger on. I wanted to blame anyone for his death except James. I remembered.
Joey, have you seen the utility van parked outside over there on Walton?
I pointed towards the front of the building. Joey's head spun up from listening at the window. He aimed all of his attention at me.
No, I don't go that way. Why?
He spoke in hunted syllables. I told him about what I had seen at the other end of the alley, about the worker in the van, about the mirror, about how long he was parked there.
They know I'm here. There's probably a black car not too far away.
Joey nodded his head to no one in particular and came to a decision for himself.
Well, this is it. This is why I came down here.
He propped himself against the wall with his free hand like he was taking a leak. Joey leaned down and jabbed his bare hand into the nest of syringes like some maniac zoologist wrangling a toxic porcupine. I jumped.
Joey, what? Don't do that!
I yipped like a strangled cat and kneaded the beanbag with the heels of my chucks. I opened my eyes. Joey was calm when he looked back at me. His arms were bent at an unnatural angle so that he could reach over the picket without touching a spike. At each corner there were rubber-banded bunches that were pointed down into the wax. Joey grabbed 2 of them and pulled up. Nothing happened, so he set a stance with his ass in my face and gave the syringes a sharp yank.
I saw shadows sharpen between the edges of the wax mound and the floor beneath. I heard a snap of plastic, and then a troop of startled cockroaches skittered from beneath the wax. They scattered between our feet to the hidden places in the room before making a run for the crack beneath the front door. Joey barely noticed them. He kept lifting until he had to take his other hand from the wall to help raise the conglomerated mass up. Joey set it out of the way on the foot of the futon. I looked at the floor and there was a 12-inch by 12-inch cutaway in the floorboards. The funk of wet wood and mildewed paper escaped the hiding spot. I leaned to my left to try and get a glimpse of the contents inside. My heart started pumping when I saw the pebbled oxblood spine of a book lying inside.
Pop didn't let everything go up in flames.
Joey reached into the hole.
Ma told me to get this out of the house.
Joey pulled out a plump, misshapen lump that had been a hardcover book at one time.
Dad said to bring it to you if anything happened to him.
He plopped its damp weight down into my open arms.
And I guess something did.
Visuddhimagga stared back at me.
What is it?
I looked down at the stained cardboard codex. I touched it. A puff of air like a glaucoma test jetted out from beneath the bottom of the book cover. My hand let go of the book like it was a hot knife. I leaned back away from my lap like it might explode like a grenade. Nothing happened. I squeaked.
What was that?
Shh! Joey hissed with a finger up to his lips.
I'm pretty sure it's you.
What do you mean, me? I tried to keep my voice below the roar of the fan.
Pop had me lift your DNA off of a cup that he took from your room at the hospital. It's keyed in to open in the presence of your biometrics is all I know.
I opened the cover and looked at the blank leaf. I licked my thumb with all of the spit I could muster and tried to open it. The page wouldn't lift, but a bright blue-white outline began to trace out shapes on the page in moon writing. I sniffed and watched as a numeric keypad appeared.
It's a conductive touch-sensitive leaf that Pop had me attach to the book as part of a security suite he wanted in place. I cut out a hunk of the pages so there's a small compartment inside. Pop worked on the lining so that it couldn't be broken into without destroying the contents. It'll destruct if anyone tries to open it that isn't supposed to. Anyone that isn't you.
What do you think it is? My fingers drummed on the book.
All I know is it's out of my hands now. I'm walking out the front door of this place and setting my family free. They can investigate us all they want.
Joey went into the kitchen.
Wait, what's the code to get in?
He shrugged.
Pop was a crypto fan.
Joey grabbed his postal bag and threw it over his shoulder.
What? Wait! He didn't tell me the code.
Joey tightened the string and the eye hooks at the window and set the party cup of ink back on the ledge. He reset the wax back into the cutout in the floorboards. Joey draped the white towel over the needles.
Wait! Thank you for doing this, Mr. Franken.
Joey opened the front door and blood-red light flooded into the dank apartment. I fumbled in quicksand trying to right myself from up out of the beanbag. Joey called back over his shoulder.
You might want to wait a while before you leave. It might be better if they didn't think we met up. Joey, wait!
But he didn't. I watched his back disappear around the corner.
Who's they?
I squeaked like a mouse in a trap. Defeated, I slumped into the chair and stared into the hallway.
I need help getting up.
I mumbled in the dark. I watched for moving shadows on the wall. I opened the cover of the book. I put my thumb to the page like I was going to open it and waited. For 10 minutes, I stared at the numeral tacked to the front of apartment number 5 and thought of other numbers. I ran magic squares. I fed pi to the 10th decimal place through all the rainbow tables I could remember off top. Finally, I thought of Visuddhimagga and its translation, a path to purification. I thought of the blood of Christ, INRI, Jesus Christ, King of the Jews. I thought of the alchemists, and I thought of fire, INRI, Igne Natura Renovator Integra. The whole of nature renews itself through fire. The Jewish mathematical value of INRI is 138. This is also the value of the phrase, I am here. Throw out a welcome mat next time, Dr. Abraham. The keyboard appeared and I typed in INRI numerically. I waited. The blue light of the keyboard broke down into threads of light and then winked out. Nothing happened after that, and the keyboard wouldn't reappear when I put my thumb to the page again. I ran my sweaty fingers across the face of the page, and it gave way with the swiping movement. It turned like a page should. I saw the hidden compartment behind it. It looked empty at first, other than a small thumb drive. My ass had fallen asleep. I shut my eyes. I don't know how long I lay like that. I was shaken awake by Kendall's voice around the corner.
Hey, where y'all going? I'm just trying to be neighborly.
I put the drive back in the compartment and closed the front cover of the book. The door downstairs slammed.
Whatever.
A herd of buffalo stomped closer on the linoleum in the hall. I watched the beastly shadow growing on the opposite wall. I heard the lumbering gait.
Hey, Frank, what are you doing just sitting there in the dark?
It was Kendall booming around the corner with a cigarette adhered to her bottom lip. Your new neighbor left me here and ran off, I sighed. She flipped on the light and came inside. She pulled me back onto my feet. A chat of ash was dangling from the tip of her cigarette as she barked.
Looks like he knows how to party.
I think he's collecting cigarette butts. I looked at the window. I couldn't go that way. I knew that if I went out the front door, the utility worker would see me. I decided to give Joey's advice a whirl. I decided to lay low for another 10 minutes. Kendall, do you have a computer? I asked.
Shit, I gotta beat off like everybody else, don't I?
I just need to look something up. Paresthesia was pricking my ass.
Yeah, door's open. I gotta take a dump before Public Square comes on. Just tell Merle I said it's alright, but don't touch any of my bookmarks. I got all my stuff saved the way I like it.
Kendall lumbered into the bathroom.
Go on, Frank. I'll be there in a minute.
Then she closed the door. I took a quick look around, eager to leave before Kendall began her business. I put the lock on. I left and closed the door to Joey's apartment behind me. The door to number 2 was unlocked just as Kendall had said it would be, so I let myself into her lair. Sweat, smoke, and spilled bean juice hung heavy in the air. Space heaters made the place feel hot and close like a sauna full of wet dogs and feet. The TV was blaring commercials for shyster lawyers and miracle mobs. Kendall's common-law husband, Merle, was zonked out asleep in a beaten recliner in front of their small television set. Merle's throne was surrounded by 2-liter trucker bombs full of urine. His unhinged angel's face was deep in peaceful slumber. I let him be and looked around for the computer. I found Kendall's tan monitor with an online Texas Hold'em table pulled up. The cards of other people's hands were flipping silently with the sound muted. I opened the book using the same process as before, same number theory. I pulled out the drive and looked at it. I stepped past Merle's dark purple gout and swiveled the office chair around. My fingers left prints in the collected layer of dandruff that covered the pleather headrest. A familiar voice on the television spoke anxiety into my left ear.
Every time it rains, another devil's tongue turns silver. And hadn't it been raining an awful lot around here? Sometimes it seems like anyone can get up and speak on the word of God. But it's rare to find someone like me. I've been leading praise for over 40 years and my ministry has never been stronger.
It was the Right Reverend's voice speaking as the camera panned over singing faces, clasped hands, a multitude at worship.
So if you've been led astray by sweet music and flash to some watered-down New Age church, and you long to get back on the proper path, come and let me renew your faith in the Lord. Come see me this Sunday.
It was 9 o'clock on CBS Local, at least 1 million views. He had paid a premium for a primetime ad slot just to talk shit about our church. I shook my head.
And this Easter, join me in Dodge City, Kansas for Livestock, the largest gathering of rising stars and classic gospel talent anywhere in the Christian world. There'll be camping, concerts, and the prairie's largest carnival. Come join me in Dodge City, Kansas this Easter to celebrate the Lord and His greatest gift ever.
I grabbed the drive and shoved it into Kendall's open USB slot. I pulled up Explorer. I waited until the auto installer unzipped the software and the window for the drive popped up. I saw 2 files. The first was a notepad file, and I double-clicked it. It said, "I am here." The other file was an exe named A Wall of Fire. I double-clicked on it and a DOS prompt window popped up. White lines of code unspooled, and then the screen went blue and a countdown appeared, starting at 9. A message read, "You have chosen to run Drive K auto erase. Data on host and connected peripherals will now be destroyed. Please stand by." My heart shot out of my chest and I ripped the drive out of the slot. I nearly broke the mouse machine gun clicking cancel on the screen. My temples blossomed into tight white pain and my shoulders balled up in tension. A kill switch? That's the path to purification? What the hell, man? I couldn't believe all of that sneaking around not to get caught just for a stupid kill switch. I could have just made one of my own. Asshole. I spat. "Who you talking to, Frank?" Kendall closed the front door behind her and walked in. "Just myself, I guess. Just myself."